you've attacked us and you've taken over our building. He took over real estate all over Colorado. You did, right? Give me your hand. Put the hand down. Boom. Cuts off his fingers. And they want it back. And how about the mix-up with the MS-13, where it wasn't a Trinidad, it was an MS-13 killer. And they said, oh, they got it mixed up. Let's get them back into our country. No, we need people that are gonna love our country. I'm proud to be the president for the workers, not the outsourcers. The president who stands up for Main Street, not Wall Street, who protects the middle class, not the political class, and who defends America, not trade cheaters all over the globe. They're trade cheaters. They cheated on us. They cheated with tariffs on us. They stole our money. They stole our jobs. And now people are going around saying, oh, we're not treating them right now. We're treating them very good, actually. They're lucky we're treating them so good. And, you know, when I have tariffs and I say, well, we're going to charge what they did. We're going to charge what they did. And then I say, I'm going to charge much less than they did. Believe me, we're actually being nice about it. But we're doing very well, better than we've ever done before. My job is not to maximize the profits of outsourcers and I mean, these foreign corporations are horrible. It's horrible what they're doing, but we're catching them. We're catching them by the dozens. My job is I have to defend the American dream, and I have to defend the American citizens. That's my job. I have to defend that. The American dream is never mentioned. It was mentioned for 4 years, and now it's being mentioned again, but it was never mentioned when we had Sleepy Joe in office. I used to have the hardest thing I had to do with Joe Biden is the nickname. Do I call him Sleepy Joe or Crooked Joe? Could we take a vote, please? Who wants to call him Crooked Joe? Who wants to call him Sleepy Joe? That's my problem. It's like the same. They both work. They both work beautifully. Joe had one ability that I didn't have. You know, he said he was a good golfer. He's terrible. Somebody said the only time I got angry during our debate when he said he was a 6 handicap. He's not a 6. He's not a 36. Okay. But he had one ability that I don't have. He was able to go to a beach, bathing suit in tow, so because it looked like it was actually falling off. But he'd go, had a hard time walking through the sand because, you know, sand is heavy on your feet. Carrying one of those 6-ounce chairs that are made out of aluminum that if you weigh a little bit too much, it just cracks in the middle when you sit down. And he could sit down in a beach with photographers on the beach. You know, he's the president, so he had a minimum of photographers, but he still had photographers. And he could fall asleep. Who the hell could do that? Who could fall asleep? And he turned around and drool would be coming out. He didn't care. His wife didn't. It's an ability that I could never fall asleep under those circumstances. I'd be very conscious of my body and what we look like. I'd be sitting up like this. And I'd say, darling, it's time to go. Let's get out of here. Well, wouldn't most people? This guy could go to the beach and he was out in seconds. Guys are shooting him. He'd be in the papers the next day, eyes closed, mouth open. The United States has been getting ripped off for 50 years, and we're simply not going to take it anymore, and that's what's happening right now. In 1950, the United States dominated global auto production, producing more than 75% of all of the cars on Earth. Think of that, 75% and even higher before that. Today we produce 11%, while China produces 3 times more than we do. Let me tell you something. With the tariffs that we're doing, as you know, we have tariffs on automobiles, aluminum, steel.
Hello, this is DrPaulCottrell, and we're doing a live stream on Rumble and on YouTube. YouTube has the dashboard of the Asian market. I'm going to be giving a update on the markets for the Asian trading session. We are also simulcasting on X Spaces. So if you have a question or you would like to give me your opinion on how you think the markets are reacting to the tariffs, please type it in the chat or go go to X Spaces and ask for the mic. So thank you for watching. Greatly appreciate it. Please help support my work by subscribing to the 7 channels I have. I have 4 channels on YouTube, Brighteon, Bitchute, and Rumble. All the links are in the description of this video and all my videos. In addition, please help support my work by going to my website, the-studio-reykjavik.com. Help support by donating, or you can purchase the products that I offer. I have ebooks, I have supplements, I also have modules teaching you pulmonology and immunology. Follow my protocol and help support your health and help support the work I do. All these videos I do are for free, so please help support. With that, let me plug one product before we go back to Trump and then cover the Asian trading session. Please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com, and get the charcoal tea tree and the lemongrass structural nanosilver soaps. You can also get peppermint structural nanosilver soap and lavender. Get a few bars for your household, help support my work, help support your health. Use discount 5, all caps, number 5, and you get $5 off. Please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com. If you spend $150 or more, you do get a free gift until supplies last.
The globalists will go after you. For 7 decades, American ships have patrolled the seas, American troops have kept the pace of peace, and American wealth has enriched the globe. But despite all we have given to them, you will not find an American car in Berlin, in Tokyo, in Seoul, in Shanghai, not a car. I used to say to Angela Merkel, Angela, how many Chevrolets do we have in Berlin? Why, none, Donald, none. That's right, Angela, you got it. How many Chevrolets do you think we have in Munich, Angela? None, Donald. I said, you sent us 7 million cars last year. So we're going to start buying American-made cars or cars that are manufactured in America. And if you can do it, not part of what I was going to say, but one of the best things that I think I've come up with is interest deductions. If you buy a car that's made in America, you get an interest deduction on the money you borrow. And I love it. I hope you can do it, Mike. I hope you can do it, because I haven't bugged you about that. I've been talking about no tax on tips, no tax on Social Security, no tax on overtime. And I haven't really been as strong on this one, but it's only because it gets a little bit long, you know. But if you think of it, you buy a car, you borrow money, and you get a deduction on that money if the car is made in America. I think that will not cost you 10 cents. You'll make money with that one. I think you'll make money actually in a certain way with the other 3 also. I think they're very important, and they were part of our campaign. I was going to say before that in Nevada, that when I came up with the no tax on tips, I think that's why we won by a massive amount. And interestingly, they came up about a month and a half later. She was making one of her few speeches. She didn't speak too much for a reason, good reason. She was making a speech, and in the middle she said, oh, and by the way, we will have, everyone's falling asleep, we will have no tax on tips. The place booed the hell out of it. They said, you're a little late on that one, because I was worried they'd copy me, it was so good. You know how it actually happened? Maybe I should tell the story quickly. I was in my...
All right, let me just do a market update here. The S&P 500 futures is trading at 4,926. The pound USD is trading at 1.27. Natural gas is trading at 3.48. Gold futures is trading at 2,991. Brent oil is trading at $61.07 a barrel. Copper futures is trading at 4.09. And the Nikkei is trading at 32,448.
This was my consultant, waitress from my hotel. Most people go out and spend millions of dollars to come up with an idea. I said, she just said, no tax on tips. That's the coolest thing I've ever heard. So I went outside, there were a lot of, we finished our wonderful meal, steak, went outside, and there were a lot of cameras, as there always are, unfortunately. I said, ladies and gentlemen, we have a new policy. all over the country, but specifically in Nevada, there will be no tax on tips, right? And the cameras went wild, click, 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 click. And we won the state by a lot, so I don't know. So I have to find that waitress and thank her. She was my consultant, except I didn't pay her $2 million like the other consultants that we all get screwed by. Even worse than the tariffs other countries impose are the non-monetary barriers. That's a non-monetary, these are not financial, these are other things, what they do so that you can't get your product in that country. And China, as you know, is one of the bigger offenders. And it's not all China. Look, I get along with President Xi, I have over the years, but you just, when COVID came, that was the end. That was it. That was called the bridge too far. But I've always had a good relationship with a very smart guy, loves his country. I love our country. So, we love our country. He loves his. I tell that to other leaders. You got to fight for your country. You're not going to fight for us. But we can't fight for you. We're fighting for other countries. We're trying to make them great without making us great. But those days are over. They steal our intellectual property. They rob our trade secrets. They manipulate their currency to levels that have never been seen before. Today it was announced that China is reducing its currency. Did you see that? Big, big. In other words, they're going to make up for it. They got every trick in the book. I'll tell you, they are great. You got to hand it to them. You got to hand it to them. They're manipulating their currency today as an offset against the tariffs. Not supposed to do that. The game isn't supposed to be played that way. It makes it very hard for us. But in the end, it's not good because they have to buy oil. See, we don't need oil. We don't need oil and gas. We have more than any other country. They have to buy it. That's where it hurts them when they do that. It costs them twice as much. And they ship their products through every one of our trading partners, running up our deficits with these countries. They sell a lot. When you put a tariff on them, they sell it like with steel. They were dumping tremendous amounts of steel into our country during my term. I saved every steel mill. We only have steel mills because of what I did. I put a high tariff on them, 25 and then 50%, and it stopped. It stopped. They were dumping so much steel, we would have lost every single steel mill. The people that like me best are the people in the steel business, but I think the auto business is going to be right there. I think chips are going to be there. I think pharmaceuticals are going to be there because, we don't make our own pharmaceuticals, drugs, and other things to get better. They're made in other countries, and you pay the same package in our country compared to like London and other places is sometimes 10 times more. 10 times more. Something that sells for $88 in London sells for $1,300 here, made in the same factory by the same company. And that's over. I told them all it's over. They put all of their research and development, they put everything. But what they don't tell you is that these other countries are smart. They say you can't charge more than $88, otherwise you can't sell your product. And the drug companies listen to them. But we're going to do something that we have to do. We're going to tariff our pharmaceuticals. And once we do that, they're going to come rushing back into our country because we're the big market. The advantage we have over everybody is that we're the big market. So we're going to be announcing very shortly a major tariff on pharmaceuticals. And when they hear that, they will leave China, they will leave other places because they have to sell, most of their product is sold here. And they're going to be opening up their plants all over the place in our country. We're going to be announcing that. So that's breaking news. Ladies and gentlemen, we have breaking news. That's what's going to happen. What other presidents allow China to get away with is absolutely criminal, but I'm not like the other presidents. And it's not going to happen under President Trump. It's just not going to happen. After all of the abuses they've perpetrated, China's attempting to impose additional unjustified tariffs. And just so you understand, they all got rich because of tariffs. Now when we do it, it's so terrible. What Trump is doing is so terrible. They got rich. And not only China, many countries. I mean, you look at Vietnam, you look at so many, I could name 50 right now. Biden couldn't do that. He couldn't name any. Name one country. Name any country. What's the name of our country? He doesn't know. That's why additional tariffs on Chinese goods are in place effective midnight tonight at 104%. Until they make a deal with us, that's what it's going to be. I think they'll make a deal at some point. China will, they want to make a deal. They really do. They want to make a deal. They just don't know how to get it started. Because they're proud people. China will now pay a big number to our treasury. This is all taxes. And don't let them keep telling you that this is a tax on our people. I hate that. You know, they say it's a tax. No, often much of it is paid. And hey, look what happened during my first term. We had no inflation, and yet I took in hundreds of billions of dollars in tariffs and taxes from China. No other president got 10 cents in tariffs or taxes from China. I got hundreds of billions of dollars, and I still got along with them because they understood what they were doing was wrong. They understood it. It's when you explain it, they say, I've had numerous leaders tell me, "You're right, sir. I was waiting for you to bring this up." Because some of the trade deals that were made by predecessors as president were so bad, you almost wonder who did these deals. They were either crooked or stupid. They could be nothing else. They were either stupid or crooked. It's terrible, but it's all being changed. I changed a lot of it in the first 4 years, but it's all being changed. You know, the first 4 years, we had the most successful country in history in terms of economics. We had an 88% increase in the stock markets. We had an 88% increase. There's never been any president that had an 88% increase. We had 88%. And a lot of happy people. And I think we're going to do much better than that this time, because this time I'm doing what I want to do with respect to the tariffs. I think we're going to do much better. And just remember the numbers. When you get up to 2 billion a day, 2 billion a day, they say, "Sir, can't be that, can it?" I said, "Yeah, it can. It's the biggest transaction ever made. This is bigger than any deal. You guys, some of you work for companies. Your companies are peanuts. I don't care how big they are. This is the largest transaction in the history of our country." And don't let some of these politicians go around saying, you know, because I'm telling you, these countries are calling us up.
Nikkei's down more than 3.5%.
I'll do anything, sir. And then I'll see some rebel Republican, you know, some guy that wants to grandstand, say, "I think that Congress should take over negotiations." Let me tell you, you don't negotiate like I negotiate. Congress takes over negotiating. Sell America fast, because you're going to go busted. You know, I just saw it today. A couple of your congressmen said, "I think we should get involved in the negotiation of the tariffs." So that's what I need. I need some guy telling me how to negotiate. I tell you, the happiest people in the world would be China. They wouldn't be paying 104%. I tell you, they'd be paying no percent. We'd be paying them 104%. That's the beauty. Is these guys, we gotta be careful. And even the concept of it hurts your negotiation. When they see a little story like that, the other side, you know, it hurts your negotiation. And
please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com, and get the very high quality deodorants that I have. They are dual purpose. You use it as a deodorant, but it also helps to detoxify your body. It's made from essential oils from the Himalayas. You can get it in peppermint, lavender and tea tree, and in citrus. So please go to my store, get a couple bars for your households for males and females, very high quality deodorants. If you spend $150 or more on my store, you will get a free gift. So please use discount 5 and save $5 off on top of that.
think of that. And that's with all of the difficulties and all of the fake investigations and the Adam Shifty shifts. Can you believe this guy? He's got the smallest neck I've ever seen. And the biggest head. We call him watermelon head. I say, how could that big fat face stand on a neck that looked like this finger? How can it? It was the weirdest thing. It's a mystery. Nobody can understand it. But he's one of the most dishonest human beings I've ever seen. And you know how we can allow people like that to run an office is a shame, but we did. He was in charge of the witch hunt. You know, he was in charge of the fake witch hunt with Russia. It was a made-up story. Made up. Think of it. They make up a story. They know it's made up. It's gone on for a year and a half, 2 years. Russia. I knew nothing about it. The only thing I knew was that I taxed the pipeline that I told you about, that I put all sorts of sanctions and everything else. They never had a problem like they had with me. But it was Russia, constant, as a method of, what they did is that was the complaint about why she lost an election, because crooked Hillary was expected to win the election. But they didn't see what we saw. We saw the biggest crowds in history gathering, only superseded by the crowds we just had. But here's a guy that goes out and he goes to an intelligence hearing or whatever you might call it, and it's supposed to be secret. He'd walk out, he'd either make a call off the record, this is crooked Adam, shifty Schiff. He's a shifty Adam. Or he'd just go out blatantly and have a news conference. And because it had to do with me and my family, he'd go out and have a news conference. And he said, you've got to remember, he knows it's a hoax because he made it up with crooked Hillary. So he knows it's a hoax because we're dealing with human beings on the other side. He'd say, Donald Trump Jr., the son of the President of the United States, will spend many years in prison because of what he's done with Russia. Now, think of that statement on a human basis. I have a young son, who was being told that he's going for prison on something he doesn't even know what they're talking about. He said, Dad, I don't know what's going on. They keep talking about I'm involved with Russia. I don't know anything about Russia, I swear to you, Dad. And yet, Adam Schiff goes out and makes a statement about a hoax that he made up that he knows is false. How bad a human being do you have to be? They put my son and my family through that kind of trauma. These are bad people. These are sick degenerates. And I used to be much nicer to them. I gave them the benefit of the doubt, but I've just seen too much. They make up a story about Russia. It's a hoax. And eventually, now they've all admitted it was a hoax. On to the next one. That's Russia. But they know it's a hoax. And they say about a young man that he's going to spend the rest of his life in prison because of what he's done with Russia. He knows it's a hoax. How bad do you have to be to have that happen to your son? And, there's a bad effect on a family, a bad effect. You okay, Don? I am, Dad, but I don't understand. They keep tying me to Russia. I don't know anything about Russia. He didn't know a damn thing about Russia. It's a disgraceful situation. That's why we got to kick their asses in the midterm. So we got to kick their asses again in 4 years. If we slash taxes on American workers and producers, our economy will soar, jobs will surge, manufacturing will boom, and our country will prosper like never, ever before. We got to get this big, beautiful deal done. We got to get it done. And get it done now. Don't wait 2 weeks. Don't wait 2 weeks. See, bad things happen. Crazy things happen in politics. Just get the damn thing done and stop showboating. A couple of people want to, sure, I got a little bit more. You know what you're going to get? You end up getting nothing. You end up getting a Democrat bill or worse. In the past 11 weeks, we've already created 350,000 jobs. It's unprecedented, including 10,000 manufacturing jobs. We haven't even started yet. Gas prices, when I came in, they said he campaigned on prices coming down and prices going up. They're not going up, they're going down. Gas prices are way down. In fact, they had something $2.50 a gallon. I saw on television a little while ago in between watching my great friends on C-SPAN. I saw that the prices are down to
U.S. oil futures are below $60 a barrel. So, prices are going down. But the Democrats will just try to demonize everything and break our democracy. Please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com. Get the lozenges and the drops. Mitigate that irritation during the allergy season or even the cold season. You can get it in Manuka honey, elderberry zinc for the lozenges. You get 21 in each bag, or get the drops. You get 100 in each bag, and you can get it in cherry flavor, honey and lemon, and blueberry. So get the drops, the lozenges. Make sure you have some at work. Make sure you have some at home. Why? Because right when you get that irritation, you want to mitigate it right away so it doesn't fester. If it festers, it takes longer for you to heal. Something that's benign, something that's mild, can take 2 to 3 weeks to fully heal those tissues that have been affected. So please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com. Get the lozenges and the drops. Get a few bags for your household. If you spend $150 or more on my store, you will get a free gift. Make sure you use discount 5 so you can get $5 off.
So biggest chip company in the world, they're spending $200 billion in Arizona, building one of the biggest plants in the world. And that's without money. All I did is say, if you don't build your plant here, you're gonna pay a big tax, 25, maybe 50, maybe 75, maybe 100%. NVIDIA is investing hundreds of billions of dollars. Johnson & Johnson is investing $55 billion. Eli Lilly is investing $27 billion. The Mac is investing $20 billion. We have billions and billions being invested by Merck, Clarios, Stellantis, General Motors, Honda, Nissan, Hyundai. All are putting in billions and billions and billions of dollars. They're buying sites all over their building because they don't want to have to pay 25 and 50% tariffs. They're all doing it. And I think they also have confidence in the country. They have a president that they have confidence in. I know many of them. With the help of people in this room, we are one big, beautiful bill signing away from the greatest economy in the history of the world. And it's an overhang. You know, this bill's an overhang because if it doesn't get signed, we will have imposed the biggest tax on the people of this country in our country's history by 40%. Biggest tax, because we gave you the biggest tax cut in history. Now we're giving you another, which is one of the reasons, there are many reasons why we were so successful. That's one of the big ones. The other one is that 1 year deduction, all in 1 year deduction, so big, and I know they're working on that, the big deduction. It makes people invest. But now we're working on something that's gonna, I think, blow it away. This bill is unbelievable. It's gonna bring a lot of money back into our country. But if we don't do it, it's gonna be a disaster. And you just better hope that people believe that it was the Democrats' fault, because, you know, they're very good at saying it was our fault. It'll be the biggest tax increase in history. And all my life as I watched politicians, I wasn't a politician, but I watched them and I contributed to them a lot. Contributed a lot of money over the years, but I watched it. But all my life I hear politicians saying, we are going to give you a tax cut. I will cut your taxes. We will cut your I never heard. They're the only party that says, we are going to increase your taxes. Vote for me. Who the hell ever heard this? Only these people. We're in a strange time. These lunatics go out and they tell her.
S&P futures still down 1.9%.
But I've never heard that said. Oh, I've watched politics all my life. I've never seen politicians campaign on, we're going to increase your taxes, except these crazy Democrats. As part of this legislation, I'm committed to spending cuts, and I will fight hard to include the elimination of hundreds of billions of dollars in waste, fraud, and abuse in the bill. We've already found hundreds of billions of dollars through Doge, and Elon has been terrific. He's been really terrific. But we found hundreds of billions of dollars of waste, fraud, and abuse. But now we need to get the budget resolution, and we have to get it passed at the Senate. We have to bring it through the House. It's going to pass in both. One thing I'll say is that Thune has been great. John Thune has been great. And he's worked with your great leader hand in hand. Those two bills are coming up together, and they're very similar. And I didn't know that would happen because you have a lot of different rules, procedures, complicated stuff. But Mike has been amazing, and John Boone, and they've worked like amazingly well because they've just been going on at the same time. And we're ready to get this thing done and beyond and get rid of the debt hangover ceiling that's a disaster for our country and for everybody, and to give people the biggest tax cuts they've ever had, because we're going to add them both up together. It'll be the biggest tax cuts. It'll blow away the tax cuts that we got them 4 years ago. If we follow through on this agenda, we will be rewarded with a phenomenal economy and a massive victory at the ballot box in 2026, because we will have a record of triumph like no president has ever had, like no Congress has ever had. They will not be able to even touch your seat. Your seat is secure, and we'll pick up 40, 50, or even 60 seats, and we'll have something that's going to be smooth sailing for years to come. If we don't get it done because of stupidity or a couple of people that want to show how great they are, you just have to laugh at them or smile at them or cry right in their face. In less than 3 months, our new administration has already accomplished more than most administrations achieve in 4 years or 8 years, and everybody says it. And we have to have this stuff documented and approved. In a matter of weeks, we've achieved the lowest level of illegal border crossings in American history. In history, they have a plaza in front in Tijuana, Mexico. I wouldn't advise going there on a trip, but nevertheless, they have a plaza, a big plaza, that held hundreds of thousands of people. Yesterday morning, there were none. There was a man sweeping this massive plate of concrete, massive. And he was sweeping the concrete, and there was nobody there. During the same period last year, Joe Biden released more than 184,000 illegal aliens into our country. Think of it. Many of these people were from jails and mental institutions, as I said. Since my inauguration, we've released a grand total of nine, and they were all, in all cases, medical emergencies. We did that for medical emergency reasons. Last month, we officially designated Trinidad, MS-13, and the Mexican drug cartels as foreign terrorist organizations.
All right, he's doing a repeat of his typical speech. Please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com, and get the Max 35 or the Max 14 or the Cleanse. All right. Each one of these are a different ppm, parts per million. Max 35 is 35 parts per million. Cleanse is 30 parts per million. And Max 14 is 14 parts per million. Take a teaspoon a day, all right? Swish in your mouth, gargle, 20 seconds, 30 seconds, and swallow. It's gonna help boost up your immune system. They're at different price points, so it depends on what you can afford, but it's important to take every day. If you're not feeling well, take a tablespoon or two a day and then go back to your maintenance dose. But it's very important to take every day. It's the first pillar of my 4-pillar core protocol. Max 35 or Max 14 or Cleanse, the first pillar, boost up your immune system. Second pillar, C60, soak up free radicals. Third pillar, turmeric, ashwagandha, and lignans, boost up that immune system, bring down inflammation. And the fourth pillar is Boomer Boost, boost up those energy levels in your metabolism. It's a very strong and effective health protocol. So please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com. Now, what I want to do is go to CNBC and see what they have to say here. Some of them are commenting about Trump.
We believe the U.S. is probably more at risk just given the valuation starting point, but it'll impact and ripple into most other countries in the world as well.
All right, Sid, listen, gotta go. It's been great to talk. Appreciate the time. Buckle up, keep safe, and do it again very soon. I hope. Sid Jane there from GQG Partners joining us. My pleasure. We'll take a quick break. We're back into.
All right, so they're on break here. Let me pivot over to Fox News. Yeah, Fox News. This is General Keane talking about Iran.
Having direct talks with Iran, and they've started. It'll go on Saturday. We have a very big meeting, and we'll see what can happen. And I think everybody agrees that doing a deal would be preferable to doing the obvious. And the obvious is not something that I want to be involved with, or frankly, that Israel wants to be involved with if they can avoid it.
President Trump yesterday with Benjamin Netanyahu and reporters talking about the high-level talks now expected with Iran. Of course, the president told me last month he had sent a letter to the Ayatollah Khomeini. The country's foreign minister confirmed the negotiations on X, saying that they will happen on Saturday in Oman. Reuters is reporting Iranian-backed militias in Iraq are prepared to disarm to avoid escalating a conflict with the Trump administration. Joining me now is Fox News senior strategic analyst. He is chairman of the Institute for the Study of War, General Jack Keane. General, it was a pleasure. Thanks so much for being here. What's your reaction and your expectations ahead of these talks on Saturday?
Well, first of all,
thanks to Gong, our sales teams are closing more deals than ever. To celebrate, we gave everyone sales gongs.
Well, first of all, obviously Iran made a major concession here. They wanted to do indirect talks to a third party, and certainly they welcome that because that gives them the opportunity to stall and delay and at the same time continue to develop their nuclear program. So the direct talks taking place, I think we'll get to an obvious answer in terms of Iran's seriousness here much quicker, and that's what the Trump administration favors. I think we all have to take a dose of skepticism here about Iran's sincerity in dismantling voluntarily their program. They want a nuclear program to preserve their regime. That's the reality of what they're facing, and I think they'll do everything they can to delay this and also at the same time to continue development of their program. What has to be in the deal is voluntarily dismantling all of the nuclear material, the deep buried sites themselves, and the missiles to deliver them. And we have to do it by a date certain, and also anywhere, anytime inspections by independent inspectors. This is something the Iranians, Maria, have always denied UN inspectors, etc., from doing. And unless that is available, then I don't see how we could possibly have a deal. Why? Because the history of Iran is they will lie and cheat. And we have to have verification here that this program is being dismantled.
Well, I mean, it feels like this is finally coming to a head as the president continues to repeat the Iranians cannot have a nuclear weapon. Would you expect, if in fact this does not play out that way, that the Israelis would move to destroy any buildup of nuclear weapons?
Yeah, I think there's an agreement between the United States and Israel that if this deal falls through, and I believe Prime Minister Netanyahu believes that it's highly likely that Iran will not voluntarily dismantle their complete program, that it'll be an Israeli-led, U.S.-supported strike against the target. It is a challenging target, Maria. It's in excess of 12 different sites. Some of them are deeply buried, 250 feet in the ground with 3-foot walls. And the United States has the capability to penetrate that target. The Israelis do not. That's why the United States would likely have to participate in the strike with the Israelis to achieve some measure of success. I don't think we could destroy the entire program, but we can certainly delay it a number of years and set the Iranians back rather considerably. They are in a very weakened state right now economically, and certainly they are relatively defenseless. They have lost their major weapon, Hezbollah. Hamas has been decapitated, and their strategic platform, Syria, has gone away. They have never been in this kind of a weakened position. So yes, they are very vulnerable. If we have to conduct the strike, it will further weaken the support that Iran has among the elites in their society to see their country in such a deplorable, decapitated state.
Unbelievable. And of course, the president told me about the letter that he sent the Ayatollah last month, opening up these talks, and here we have the news that it is in fact materializing. It came up a bit yesterday when the president met with Israeli Prime Minister Netanyahu at the White House. The president doubled down on his plans for the Gaza Strip as well. Watch this.
Well, you know how I feel about the Gaza Strip. I think it's an incredible piece of important real estate, and I think it's something that we would be involved in. But having a peace force like the United States there, controlling and owning the Gaza Strip would be a good thing. Because right now, all it is for years and years, all I hear about is killing and Hamas and problems.
Meanwhile, General, I want to get your take on that as well as the Panama Canal, because U.S. Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth has arrived in Panama for a security conference with defense leaders from Central America. President Trump is still pushing to take control of the Panama Canal back from China. And Hong Kong-based company CK Hutchison's plan to sell 43 ports to BlackRock, and that BlackRock-led investment group include 2 of those ports near the Panama Canal. It's now in doubt. Panama's top auditor is accusing the company of owing $300 million in dues. So now they're coming up with whatever they can to try to get in the way of any deal between BlackRock and CK Hutchison, General.
Yeah, well, certainly China doesn't want this deal to go forward for obvious reasons. I mean, what would happen here, and if conflict broke out in the Indo-Pacific region, the fact that China has control over the ports on both sides of the Panama Canal is a considerable strategic asset for them. So yes, they're doing everything they can to throw obstacles in the way. I suspect strongly, though, that we're going to continue to see this thing go forward. The President of the United States and his national security team is steadfast about this. So I see eventually progress being made in that direction. Yeah. For the Chinese company to give up control of the ports at the entry point to the Panama Canal.
General, there's a report out of NBC News this morning that the Pentagon is considering a proposal to cut as many as 10,000 troops from Eastern Europe. The units under consideration are part of the 20,000 personnel that the Biden administration had placed there, deployed those troops back in 2022 to strengthen the defenses of countries bordering Ukraine. And now the Pentagon's got to pull that back, a proposal to withdraw as many as 10,000 troops. Your thoughts?
Well, first of all, the good news that's happening in Europe is the European allies, NATO itself, all of them, for the most part, are dramatically increasing their defense budgets and their capabilities. They recognize full well the threat from Russia and their desire to expand into Eastern Europe. And the President of the United States has put significant pressure on them to do that, but they recognize it themselves. The Secretary General of the UN has said as much. He's looking at 3% in terms of defense capabilities. And obviously, if the Europeans are stepping up and building their defense capabilities, then we don't need as many troops in Europe as we currently have. Yeah. That's the reality, and that's what's on the review. And we'll see what comes of that. I think those discussions will not just be unilateral. They will be taken in the context of NATO itself. Obviously, the Supreme Commander of NATO is an American general, and those discussions, I think, will be ongoing. And I think it's appropriate to review these deployments from time to time to make certain the fit is right. They were put in there because of the crisis that took place in Ukraine. And if we're actually going to move towards some kind of a peace agreement, then obviously the threat goes down. Yeah. There's a lot of work to be done on a ceasefire arrangement, though.
Before we go back to CNBC, please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com. Get the natto kinase. Natto kinase is fibrinolytic. It's going to break up clots. It also helps to bring down LDL levels and increase your HDL levels. That's very important for your cardiovascular health. A great stack for cardiovascular health and for bone health is the vitamin K2 and the D3. They work together to absorb calcium. So taking calcium supplements or drink milk, do resistance training, and you're going to be building thicker bone, higher bone density over time. Really important. But also, if you take these together, they will help to reduce the amount of calcium that's deposited in plaque that's built up in your vascular system. And over time, it can slowly pull some of that out. So you can actually reduce your calcium plaque buildup over time. Now, D3 will work better if you also take in a multivitamin or a supplement that has magnesium. So I have a magnesium and zinc supplement, a vitamin C and magnesium supplement, and my Boomer Boost also has magnesium in it to increase the efficacy of D3. So please stack these together to help with your cardiovascular health and your bone health. It's really important, though, to do resistance training, weightlifting, to help get that bone density. All right.
Welcome back. It's a midweek Wednesday here on Squawk 8 as the clock ticks down to midnight. Remember, a second past that is when reciprocal tariffs kick in the United States because it is going to be April the 9th there. Countries are still scrambling to negotiate with Washington. Vietnam is one of them, and JPI is one of the countries where, the talk is they're both trying to get to zero tariffs.
Absolutely, but it's going to be very, very difficult in Vietnam's case because we know they have one of the biggest trade surplus with the United States to the tune of about $123.5 billion US dollars, actually. And if you take a look at this also, Martin, you'll notice that that this is also why Vietnam has one of the biggest tariffs, 46% actually on them. So General Secretary To Lam has been on the phone with President Donald Trump, which the American president is characterized as being productive talks towards getting to these zero tariffs, or perhaps to trying to improve the trade surplus that Vietnam has with the U.S. They have extended an invitation to open talks, and even does extend an invitation for President Donald Trump to visit Vietnam in order to kickstart some of these talks. And Mr. Trump has actually said he has accepted the invitation. The question is, when might he visit, and when can these talks actually happen? Because the clock is indeed ticking. These tariffs are set to come online very soon. Now, Vietnam itself has stuck by their 8% growth GDP growth target, actually. But again, if these tariffs do come in, it'll make it much more difficult for them to actually hit that, and could actually even imperil one of Southeast Asia's fastest growing economies, actually.
So the give and take, right? Who's likely to give what?
I think one area actually that was very interesting to note was Vietnam has now signaled that they are now open to buying more defense products from the United States. Now, if you recall, back in the 60s, they had this little tussle actually that resulted in a protracted war that really marked or shaped both countries and the history of both countries. Now, Vietnam seems to be looking at the United States and actually is now open to buying more arms, perhaps defense products, security products from them, especially since an arms embargo was lifted on Vietnam, or the sale of arms, an embargo on the sale of arms to Vietnam was lifted back in 2016. Now, what's interesting also is that when you look at the source of arms to Vietnam, there are three major exporters of arms to Vietnam. That happens to be Russia, Ukraine, and Israel. Guess what these three countries have in common? They are all embroiled in conflicts at the moment. And we've also seen that based on recent data, the exports of Russian arms to Vietnam have actually trickled to about zero over the last 2 years. So there is a severe need actually for Vietnam to upgrade their military and perhaps also increase their sources actually, which means the United States can step in. But given the history of these two countries, especially that they did engage in that bloody war about 60 years ago, it's a very interesting turn in events. Actually, it creates new opportunities for them. But again, will that fill 123 billion?
Well, yeah, I mean, there's been a generational change since the Vietnam War, right? But make an interesting point, right? The arms being supplied by all three of those countries, Russia, Ukraine, as well as Israel, are battle-proven, right? And they're probably cost-effective as well, would be a polite way to put it. U.S. arms are likely to be, more expensive, and it's not so easy to switch systems, right? When you're used to, let's say, a Russian AK, it's not as easy to switch over to something made in the U.S.
Absolutely.
I mean,
in fact,
servicing all kinds of things.
Exactly. And in fact, this is something that a defense analyst I spoke to many years ago actually raised when President Duterte of the Philippines was entertaining buying Russian arms. He said, look, just because you're going to switch from an AK-47 to an M16 in Vietnam's case doesn't mean it's as simple as waking up one day and saying, hey, you have a new rifle. This is a longer rifle. You'll probably have to train with it. You'll probably have to re-augment your tactics at least and your military strategy just a little bit to accommodate these new weapon systems. So it's not like for like. So there's a few things I'll have to consider actually if they want to do this.
Okay, all right, great stuff. Thank you, JP. JP on there. All right, you're going to want to stay tuned for the rest of our opens that's still coming up. That's happening next hour here on Squawk Box Asia. We're back in 2.
All right, so we have the Nikkei is trading at 31,871, and it's substantially down in the session. Before we go to Paul Krugman, please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com. Get the ashwagandha root. That's going to help to control your cortisol levels and bring down blood glucose levels. Very important to help with your immune system and your cardiovascular system. And turmeric. This is an antioxidant. It's going to soak up free radicals. It'll bring down inflammation. Very important for your immune system and cardiovascular system. This is a great stack to do both, helping your immune system and your cardiovascular. So please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com, and get the turmeric and the ashwagandha, stack them together. Do that every day. Do some exercising, especially cardio, and proper diet, proper exercise, proper supplementation is going to help you with your vascular system. Use discount 5 and you get $5 off. If you spend $150 or more on my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com, you will get a free gift until supplies last. And let's talk about a probiotic, all right? Probiotics are really important, all right? I have it in veggie cap or in powdered form. I prefer taking the powdered form because I take a lot of different powders like the collagen and the lignans and the Boomer Boost, the Gladiator Barley, right? So it's just easier for me to take. But some people prefer the veggie cap. Both are very high quality. Take them every day. Drink filtered water. And what you're going to notice is that your gut health is going to improve. Your ability to absorb nutrients is going to improve. That means your metabolism will be better. The communication between your gut and your liver will improve, and your gut and your brain. You're going to be less irritable. You're going to have better sleep. And with a good gut biome, you're going to have less inflammation, and you're going to improve your immune system, especially in the gut mucosal layer. So please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com, and get the probiotics. Very high quality. You should be taking these every day. Again, if you spend more than $150 on my store, you get a free gift until supplies last. Oh, all right. Let's go back to CNBC before we go to Paul Krugman.
The sell-off resumes as the U.S. President Donald Trump's reciprocal tariffs are set to kick in about 3 hours from now. China, the worst hit, facing a total 104% in levies from noon today.
Meantime, President Trump accusing Beijing of manipulating its currency to offset the tariffs incoming as the offshore yuan, China's currency, hits an all-time low. We'll see how China's central bank, the PBOC, People's Bank of China, sets its daily reference rate. In other words, the midpoint in less than 15 minutes from now.
Plus, Asian Development Bank ADB expects U.S. tariffs to hammer developing economies in this region, slashing its growth forecast by nearly a full percentage point next year.
Let's get ready to markets, and the small secondary markets in Southeast Asia are getting off to a rolling start as they always do. Out of the gate, they're not looking good. The Singapore market, usually a safe haven, is down close to about 1 3/4%. You've got Malaysia off 0.6. Taiwan continues to lose ground. It has not had a winning day yet. It is down another 1 1/4% or thereabouts. So switch over to the big markets and give you a look at how they are shaping up. Let's get to about a little more than an hour into midweek Wednesday trade. We've got Korea down about 2/3 of 1%. The Tokyo market, Japan in other words, is down close to 3%. That is roundabout session lows right now. Sure.
And of course, so with China not budging at this point, but a team of the senior Japanese officials are set to kick off their talks with the Trump administration in D.C. CNBC's Kaori Joji is following the negotiations from Tokyo. And Kaori, we've got Japan sounding very cautious and careful with everything, with Japan being one of the largest foreign holder of U.S. Treasuries. They're saying, we're not going to touch that. We're not selling U.S. Treasuries to influence these talks. We're not going to touch the FX reserves because it could actually look like a currency manipulation. Kaori.
Thanks a lot, Jerry. Well, I think you're referring to comments by the economics minister, the finance minister in Parliament, who's getting grilled on what's going to happen during these negotiations. And it's no secret that U.S. Treasuries, a big holder of that, not only is the Japanese government, but Japanese institutional investors as well. I think it would be suicide politically to say anything nearly remotely close to saying that they're going to unload some of those U.S. Treasuries. So I think there's that political angle to be aware of. I think everything is on the table, and by that I mean really everything. And that's why Japan is going to try to make this a full court press. Not only the economics minister, the trade minister, but also Japan Inc. You have to put that into the equation because at the end of the day, when the tariffs roll in about, 3 hours' time, the big company Toyota and all its thousands of parts suppliers that are spread around Japan are going to hurt and possibly push this economy into a recession.
Kaori, in terms of the impact of those tariffs on Japan's economy and growth, what are some of the numbers being thrown around right now?
I'm hearing anything between minus 0.3% to minus 0.8%. So when you consider the fact that for the January to March quarter, we haven't got the official numbers yet, those could be fairly weak because consumption is expected to have been weak. These are not insignificant numbers. And it comes at a very delicate time because you have cost push inflation because of the weaker yen, pushing up food prices. And finally, we're getting a little bit of wage growth and look like things were looking positive and that the Bank of Japan may move towards normalization of interest rates. So really, Japan cannot afford this at this time.
And on the tariffs itself, then who's actually going to pay for them, Kaori? I mean, with Japanese autos trying to get into the U.S., I mean, it's the same thing, right? It could be any number of parties who end up paying for them, but ultimately passing it on to the consumer.
I think it really depends from manufacturer to manufacturer. So we know that Ferrari has said that for cars sold in the United States, they're going to hike prices by 10%. So I want to compare that to Toyota, for example, Infiniti, which you know very well, and some of their higher end products. It's possible that for the hybrids and the high margin products, they could decide to raise prices in the United States. That will not nearly offset the 25% tariffs that the U.S. is talking about right now. The other smaller companies like Fuji Heavy Industries that relies really predominantly on the United States, this is going to be nearly impossible to offset with just passing on to the consumer. So I think that is why the Japanese government is trying to come up with a comprehensive package that perhaps includes low interest loans to help some of the suppliers get through this crunch and not face a liquidity crunch come, 6 months down the line, 12 months down the line, even earlier perhaps.
Yeah, and very similar dynamic playing out in South Korea when it comes to the government support. Kaori, thank you so much for joining us this morning. That was Kaori and Joji live for us in Tokyo. U.S. President Donald Trump saying that China is paying 104% tariffs right now. No, he is preempting it by a couple of hours because there's still 3 hours to go from those country-by-country duties kicking in. Beijing staying defiant, saying it will fight till the end. U.S. Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent, though, saying China is making a big mistake by not backing down. Here is what he had to say on CNBC overnight.
I think it was a big mistake, this Chinese escalation, because they're playing with a pair of twos. We are the deficit country. So what do we lose by the Chinese raising tariffs on us? We export 1/5 to them of what they export to us. So that is a losing hand for them.
Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent speaking there. Now, Sherry, one of the things, of course, that we're trying to do on the show right now is longer form interviews, especially with thought leaders. And Ruchir Sharma is the chairman of Rockefeller International, also the founder and chief investment officer of Breakout Capital. His fifth and latest book is What Went Wrong with Capitalism, out late last year. He's also a prolific columnist for the Financial Times, which described him as someone with the inquisitiveness of Anthony Bourdain and the foxiness of Warren Buffett. He joins us now live. Ruchir, great to see you and appreciate your time. I want to get to the tariffs in China first, if we could. I know from following you for many years that you've been bearish on China for some time. 104% tariffs on China, and with very few options. How bad is it going to be for China, do you think?
Well, unfortunately, I think that what's happening in the world just now is that the two largest economies, China and the US, this is really going to be about them, I think, in the end. And I think that the economies that are eventually going to get hurt the most are going to be US and China. So this is very different from past episodes. You know, there is this old saying, as you know, that when two elephants are fighting in the jungle, it's the grass that gets squashed. But I think that here what's going on is that it's these two economies which I think are going to suffer the most damage because this battle is really going to come down to these two entities. Now, as far as China is concerned, for the reasons that you had said at the outset, I've been bearish on the Chinese economic model for a while, thinking that this is a model which has been far too reliant on debt to grow, and also the fact that it's not done enough to fire away its domestic consumption engine, and it's far too reliant on exports. All that's now coming back to hurt China. The only silver lining in this, I think, and this is what we saw with Germany in Europe, is that when these countries are pushed to the brink, when they really come under such enormous pressure, it's then when these countries also begin to reform. So I think that for China, this is really an opportunity to carry out the kind of reform which is needed to boost domestic consumption and move away from this model of relying on exports to grow. So that is the one silver lining out of this. But overall, I think the two big casualties around the world are going to be US and China in this trade battle.
Yeah, Ruchir, let's flip over to the U.S. side if we could. I mean, the thesis of your book basically is that capitalism has failed recently in the last 10, 15 years because there's been way too much government spending, way too much regulation as well. This is something that the second Trump administration seems to be latching onto and trying to fix. So I want to get your take on that, but more specifically, though, using tariffs as a way to fix what may be broken. Is that the right way to go around about it?
No, I don't think so. I think that, you know, like as I mentioned in the book as well, that the real problem with capitalism over the past few decades is that we have a very distorted form of capitalism. We have a capitalism today which has been extremely reliant on the government to act as both the put option and also for the fact that the government to always stimulate the economies at the slightest hint of trouble. Now, what I do agree is the fact that the US economy was a sick patient. That's the description which has been used by people in the Trump administration. And in that regard, I agree that the US economic boom of the last few years was a mirage. Economic growth in the US had been artificially boosted by massive amount of government spending. It was unsustainable for the US to run a budget deficit of 6 to 7% of GDP in the middle of an economic expansion. That's the kind of stuff which makes zero economic sense. So that was the core problem, according to me. But now, the fact is that under the Trump administration, we're seeing that the government is being even more expansionist. It's using tariffs as a tool, and the way that it's using tariffs is sort of incomprehensible. So the analogy I use here is that yes, the patient was sick, but the patient was sick because of obesity, let's say, and instead what you're performing on the patient is lobotomy. So these are very different prescriptions and very different solutions out here. So I do agree that the US economy needed fixing. This model was unsustainable, but the solution where you have tariffs at the front and center of it is, I think, misguided.
Rashir, thank you so much for those words. And we've got more ahead with Rashir Sharma in just a few minutes. Lots more coming up on Squawk.
All right, so while they do their commercial break, please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com. Get the magnesium and zinc. This is a great way to boost up your immune system and help with your brain health. Magnesium has been found to help with brain function. Vitamin C, boost up that immune system. Also, it has magnesium, great way to help with your brain health and your immune system. Vitamin C also helps with skin. You can take them together to really have that max benefit for your immune system and brain health. Again, magnesium is important to take to help with the efficacy of D3. So this is a great way to build a stack with D3 and boost up your immune system. So please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com, get the vitamin C and magnesium and the magnesium and zinc. Take it with D3 too. If you spend $150 or more on my store, you will get a free gift until supplies last. Use discount 5 and get $5 off on top of that. Now, I also have structural nanosilver gel in the quick dispenser or in the tube form. This is a dual purpose product. All right. If you're not feeling well or someone around you at work or at home is not feeling well, put it on your hands, around your mouth, around your eyes, around your nose, around your ears, lightly coat your nostrils. It stays active for 5.5 hours. You can use it as a skincare, daily skincare. You can put it on a wound, a cut, an abrasion, a minor burn. It'll help to heal it. And you can use it as an aftershave. So please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com. Use this dual purpose product. Make sure you have some at work and at home. You never know when you need it. So please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com. Use discount 5 and you get $5 off.
Welcome back midweek Wednesday here on Squawk Asia. It's just gone 15 past the top of the hour, which is when usually on weekdays China, the PBOC, their central bank, sets the midpoint for their currency, the renminbi. This is something we're watching very closely. So here are the numbers out, setting the midpoint today for the RMB at 720.66 versus the last close of 733.98. So this is kind of interesting. So this is actually steadier. And this is because over the last 2-3 sessions or so, they've been setting the midpoint incrementally lower. So baby steps to try and cushion, I guess, the impact of the tariffs, which, again, are less than 3 hours away from dropping. A second after midnight Eastern time or 12 noon Hong Kong Singapore time is when those reciprocal tariffs kick in and when China gets slapped with a total of 104% tariff. So in terms of reaction, we know that China is digging in its heels and saying it will fight to the end. Other countries, though, are negotiating. And one of the things that's also happened is it's put the Federal Reserve in a bit of a tough position. Should the U.S. Central Bank cut rates to prop up growth, hit by tariffs, likely to get hit by tariffs, or keep policy steady in case inflation spikes? Well, India's central bank is caught up in the bind, same bind as well. The RBI, Reserve Bank of India, meets and decides on rates later today. As U.S. tariffs kick in, Indian bond yields are priced in a 25 basis point cut, but some analysts say there is a chance of an even deeper cut, maybe 50, or at the very least, saying that they are going accommodative in terms of policy as opposed to neutral. CNBC's TV 18's Ritu Singh has a preview of that decision, which happens 12:30 p.m. Hong Kong Singapore time. Take a look.
Amid the tariff tantrums, the focus now shifts to the central bank's next move, and respondents to our CNBC TV 18 poll of top bankers, economists, and bond dealers expect the RBI's Monetary Policy Committee to acknowledge these global risks, but remain firmly focused on domestic dynamics. Now, most expect RBI to front-load its rate cuts in April and June as tariffs threaten to hurt economies globally. Now, all of the respondents to the CNBC TV 18 poll expect the MPC to deliver a 25 basis point rate cut in this policy, with inflation cooling, growth slowing, the dollar weakening, US yields dipping, and crude prices falling. The RBI does have room to act, so the call on the rate cut is unanimous, but the question is, what else? Now, here's where opinions start to differ. Half the respondents expect a shift to an accommodative stance, signaling a more dovish RBI, but 40% think the MPC will stick with a neutral stance, keeping options open amid what is a very uncertain environment. The terminal repo rate is seen at 5.5% by the majority, and that implies a total rate cut of 75 basis points in this cycle. No major liquidity surprises are expected. Now, RBI has already been addressing tight liquidity through OMO purchases, currency swaps, higher 10 or VRR auctions, and it is likely to continue doing so. Any more here is going to be seen as a positive. Now, economists expect anywhere between 30 to 60 basis point hit to our GDP because of higher tariffs, but for now, the majority expects RBI to leave the growth forecast for this fiscal unchanged, while a small section does expect a little bit of a downgrade. On inflation, which is tracking below RBI's estimates, 60% believe it is going to be left unchanged, while 40% see it being revised lower to a 4 to 4.1%. Now, the tone of the policy expectedly will be dovish in the face of emerging external risks. With inflation under control and growth headwinds building up, the RBI may just choose to lay the groundwork for further easing in the months ahead.
And we are back with Rashir Sharma of Rockefeller International. Rashir, I do want to pick up on your last point that you were making before we went to the break, that you agree that U.S. economy needed some fixing, but tariffs may not be, well, at least at this level, may not have been the ideal way to get that achieved. What would be your advice for a Trump administration at this point in terms of resetting economic complacency, perhaps, and to create revenue? Or actually, if you stretch it out, what do you think is the end goal for Trump and announcing all these tariffs? Because is it about revenue generation, or is it about fixing the U.S. economy?
Well, I think that it's like everyone's trying to read his mind, and I think that's going to be one of the problems, that it's not clearly articulated what the end goal is. But we know from history that he has a visceral dislike for deficits. He has a yearning for manufacturing. So I think that that's what he's trying to do here, which is that he generally believes, I think, that America has been taken advantage of and that the deficit needs to be fixing. So he's got that world view, which is very different from the mainstream economic view of the world. And I think that he's also very much enjoying this power game, which is that I think that he likes the fact that about 50 countries are running to him to try and negotiate a deal. And what was not part of his calculation, I think, was that China would retaliate because he thought China too would come to the US looking to do a deal. So I think that it's a combination that, one, his dislike for trade deficits, and two, his liking for power and for using that power of both the presidential office and American power to get the kind of deal he thinks will be better for the US economy. So I think that it's a very different worldview, and so therefore so many economists and so many mainstream people are struggling with coming to terms that how can he be doing this, which as per any regular economic textbook is such as the wrong thing to do. So I think that we have to reconcile these two things, that the way we think and the way he thinks are totally different.
Okay. So, Rashir, listen, would it be a stretch to say, and to your book, right, that the U.S. right now is doing capitalism wrong? And the flip side to my question is, do you think there's an argument to be made that maybe China is doing socialism right? And I know you've been bearish on China for a long time, right? But you know, the last couple of months, right? You've had DeepSeek drop, etc. And I know that you think AI is going to be a huge differentiator in terms of productivity for all countries, but especially the U.S. But what about for China now that it seems to be exploding there?
Yes, Byron. So I think that I've also sort of had a bit of a change of view in China in the last few months, as I've written about, that I think that the bearishness on China had gotten too extreme. So in fact, one of the top trends that I write about every year included the fact that China is investable again, that there are companies in China which are cutting edge with a lot of technological prowess, trading at much lower valuations than US companies. So my favorite trade of the year when I began the year was to be short Tesla and long BYD because of the fact that how well BYD is doing in the international markets, the kind of return profile of that company and the very high quality. So I have a lot of respect for China's technological prowess. And I think that the DeepSeek moment was a very telling moment. A bigger theme for me than even being bearish on China was the fact that this whole idea of American exceptionalism had gone to a ridiculous extreme. I called that the mother of all bubbles in December for a couple of pieces that I wrote for the Ep14. And my whole idea there was that the entire world was thinking that the only place where technological innovation happens is America, and 80% of all capital in the world, as far the stock market especially, flew to just America over the last 5 years. That was just insane. So America became this extremely overhyped, overvalued, and overowned market, and a lot of the other markets were being ignored, and the technological advantages that countries such as China had were also being overlooked. So I think that DeepSeek was a corrective in that. In fact, that was the first sign, really, of the American exceptionalism bubble bursting. And since then, we've seen these series of things happen where this American exceptionalism bubble now, I think, is well in the process of deflating.
For sure, hold that thought. We're going to come back to you in just a few minutes.
Please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com, and get the structural nanosilver toothpaste. This has no fluoride in it. It's a very high quality toothpaste. Actually, this is the best toothpaste that you're going to be able to buy. Can't buy anything better. It will whiten your teeth, freshen your breath, help with your gum inflammation. It's going to improve the gum line, and improving your oral cavity will help with vascular health and with valvular health. So please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com, get this toothpaste, get a few tubes for your household. It's the best toothpaste that you can get. If you purchase $150 or more on my store, you do get a free gift until supplies last. Use discount 5 and you get $5 off. NAD Plus is a supplement that I have on my store that will help to boost up your NAD Plus levels. That will mean that you'll have more energy, you'll be able to repair DNA damage, and protect your neurons. Extremely important if you're 40 years of age or older. You need to protect your neurons and help repair that DNA damage. Cellular DNA and mitochondrial DNA. Ubiquinol. This is the most bioavailable form of CoQ10 that you can get. All right? You can't get anything better than this. Nobody sells anything better than what I have. So please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com, get the Ubiquinol. This is an antioxidant. It's going to soak up free radicals. It's going to help to boost up your energy levels because it's going to improve the mitochondrial health, and it will help to protect your neurons. Take these as a stack to protect your neurons. Extremely important to take if you're 40 years of age or older. Protect your neurons. Really important. Please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com. Use discount 5. They're still on break. because they're still on break, please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com, and get the multivitamin. This multivitamin is easy to digest, and you need multivitamins and minerals as cofactors for enzymatic activity. Go to my store, take a look at the content in this multivitamin. This is a great way to build a base, to build a customized protocol for yourself to target certain systems. Take a multivitamin every day. It's very important. And this one's easy to digest. This is a great way to start on your health journey. And also stack it with olive leaf extract. Olive leaf extract is a dual purpose product. It'll help with your cardiovascular health and your immune system. How? It'll bring down inflammation. By bringing down inflammation, that's going to help boost up your immune system, and bringing down vascular inflammation is going to reduce plaque buildup. And olive leaf extract helps to improve your total cholesterol levels. It's going to bring down LDL levels and increase your HDL levels. That means you're going to build less plaque in your vascular system. Very important. Take olive leaf extract. And a great way to stack is to take that multivitamin and take the olive leaf extract. You're helping with your enzymatic activity, and you're helping with your immune system and your cardiovascular health. Wow, they're really on a long break here. Surprising. All right, let's go to C and A.
Been expected because of falling aggregate demand and concerns about growth by the U.S. Fed. And so if that's the case, I think central banks in the region do have space, I think, to lower their interest rates. Inflation has been moderating. Commodity prices are going down, and now even lower with the oil price now really dipping to $64, $65. And so central banks do have some scope to lower interest rates to help boost economic activity.
All right, Albert, really appreciate your time. Albert Potley, he is chief economist at ADB, and we still have plenty more to come on Asia Fest. Do stay with us.
I'm surprised that CNBC is so long with their commercial right now. Please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com, and get the Clarity Factor. This Clarity Factor will get rid of brain fog, help support your memory, and by having your neurons firing more and you're being able to concentrate, it's going to help with positive neuroplasticity. Really important. So if you're getting brain fog and you need to concentrate at work, in school, or even if you're retired and you're just, you have this brain fog, make sure you filter your water, drink filtered water, stay away from processed foods, and take Clarity Factor. And that's going to help to improve your concentration and help support memory. Taking Clarity Factor is extremely important to take to get that positive neuroplasticity going. So please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com, use discount 5 and get $5 off, and take the Clarity Factor every day. Really important.
Prettier than how the markets are looking this morning. The Hang Seng Index down, I would imagine. Let's pull up the board.
3.7.
Don't leave me hanging. Yes, Hang Seng Index down 3.76%. And let's take a look at the heavyweights as well. We've got, of course, these are early movers, just a couple of minutes into the trade, but we've got a lot of losses. Again, in store, we've got Alibaba leading the losses on the board there, giving up 6% as we speak. And of course, this is a bit of a reflection of the price action that we saw on Wall Street overnight. People seem to be holding on to some kind of optimism that there will be tariff negotiations, and maybe President Trump will change his mind about especially that 104% tariffs on Chinese imports. But the rhetoric is there, and he says that he is forging ahead with 104%. Chinese markets also coming online, and we've got red pretty much across the board, and we've got the Shenzhen composite for one down about to 2.5%. We care about the currency board this week and this morning, and the offshore yuan CNH at a record low. And this is something that is actually President Trump is paying attention to at the moment, because President Trump did speak just a couple of hours ago saying that China is manipulating its currency in order to offset the impact of tariffs. So he's watching that definitely. And we've got the CNH at 7.3825. We'll see how the rest of the session goes. But of course, we did see the yuan.
Gold futures are spiking now. Gold futures are trading at $3,011.
The yuan to fall too sharply, perhaps, Marty. So we're trying to gauge where they stand in terms of the whole speculated yuan devaluation moves potentially coming from China. Marty?
Absolutely. We'll keep watching what happens with the RMB, and counting down, of course, still a bit less than 2.5 hours to go before those reciprocal tariffs kick in at noon Hong Kong, Singapore time, or just a second after midnight Eastern in the U.S. All right, a couple minutes left with Ruchir Sharma. Let's get back to him. Rockefeller International still with us live. Ruchir, in terms of response to these tariffs, right? China is obviously digging in its heels and saying we'll fight to the end, right? It's interesting. Japan is talking, Korea is talking with the U.S., Vietnam as well. India, we're looking ahead to the policy response from the RBI happening about 12:30 our time. They're going to have to back off on rates and put a bit more cushion in terms of monetary policy out of the economy. But in terms of offsetting the impact of the tariffs from the U.S., it's interesting, Ruchir. I wonder what you make of it, because India seems to have been very, very proactive, right, in terms of negotiating. They're on the ball, right, negotiating trade deals with the EU, with the UK, with the U.S. as well. And is this one example of why you still think that India probably among emerging markets still has a great chance of being the first to break out, one of the breakout nations in India?
Yes, I think that as far as India is concerned, but I think that, what's happening in India just shows you that how this crisis can be used positively by nations as well. Because one of the problems India had was that India's tariffs were too high. The country had been getting a bit too protectionist over the last few years. And what this does is it forces India to become a more open economy, as it should be, to get more competitive and to climb up the development ladder as other East Asian countries have done. So I think in that regard, this crisis has been a bit of a positive for India, because it forces it to get its act together. And it's a good example of what's happening around the world, where countries are, on one hand, coping with this crisis with the US, and India sort of is not being retaliatory. But on the other hand, I think that countries around the world are realizing that they got to keep trading, even if it's without the US. So one of the surprising data points that I put out earlier this year was that if you look at the 10 fastest growing trade routes in the world, Martin, 8 of those do not involve America anymore. 5 of them involve China and the new other countries that are involved out there. America's share in global trade has been declining since Trump's first term. So the rest of the world is learning to trade without America, to move on without America. And what India is doing here by cutting its own tariffs and doing some reforms on the trade front, which were overdue, is showing that in a crisis, you have to use that to reform your own economy. So the more that emerging markets do that, I think the better it's going to be for them. And that's my basic view, which is that the US and China are going to be the losers in this, and it's the rest of the world that will emerge as the relative winners.
Ruchir, we heard from South Korea's acting president, Han Duck-soo, while he was talking in an interview, saying that South Korea is not going to band together with countries like China and Japan in order to, retaliate, respond together in a collective manner against the U.S. tariffs. But I wonder if this is the moment where all these countries' strategies would change for the long term. Maybe they'll wait it out, do something, give the Trump administration something that they might want, but really think about long term. And as you put it, move away from the U.S. and find new friends, again, in parts of the world, ex the United States. Is that the point you're trying to say?
Exactly. So I think that you have summarized it exactly the way that I'm thinking, which is that in the short term, everyone's going to try and protect their economies to the extent they can, because America is the world's largest economy by far. It is the world's largest consumer of these goods and services. So they're going to do what it takes. But in the medium to long term, and this process is already underway, I think is the interesting point from Trump's first term, that the world is learning to trade less with America. And I think that the other thing which is going to happen is that the massive amount of capital which flew into America, that capital too is going to find a new home. And I think that the most interesting development in the last couple of days has been that the dollar has continued to weaken. Remember what people were saying, that if you get tariffs, the dollar will strengthen. That's what was the consensus view as we began this year. Instead, the dollar has been weakening against most currencies around the world, and also the fact that bond yields in America this time are actually rising, even in the face of an equity market sell-off. I just can't remember when that's happened, that you've had a weaker dollar and higher bond yields as equities have been selling off this sharply over the last few days. So something is changing here in the global system, which is that people are saying that, we are over allocated to America. We need to diversify again. Diversification has been a bad word, for the last 10 to 15 years, because America has been really the only game in town in a way. Yes, India has done relatively okay, but among the larger markets, America has been so dominant. America's stock market came to represent nearly 70% of the global MSCI index, even though its economic weight is below 30%. So now that reversal of capital is also beginning. So I think that tells you about what's going on. So for me, the most interesting development in the last 24 to 48 hours has been the rise in the 10-year bond yield, a weaker dollar, at the same time that the American stock market has been weakening. That is an unprecedented mix that I've seen.
Rashir, listen, I want to, pull it broader and try and make this a little more global. One of the reasons, or I think one of the catalysts or triggers for this move away from dollar-based assets and this need to hedge, etc., has come fairly recently, right? And this is after Russia's invasion of Ukraine. This is the second time around, not 2014 in Crimea, but the second time around, after which, right, $300 billion of Vladimir Putin's money, or okay, to be fair, Russia's central bank money was seized by the West, right? That made a lot of states, but especially China, very wary of something similar happening to them, which is why they've been recycling a lot more of their $1 trillion surplus with the U.S. away from buying treasuries and into buying gold and crypto and all sorts of other things, right? Which leads me to my next question, right? With the situation in Russia and Ukraine still ongoing, I know that for a time you were very optimistic about Poland, which obviously just abuts those two states, right? As being the next breakout star in the developed world. Do you still hold that to be true? I mean, yes, it is arming up significantly, but with war literally on its doorstep, what are Poland's prospects?
But the Polish economy has done relatively well. So the forecast that I had made a few years ago, that Poland will be the next largest.
I don't think what's going to drive the world economy is Poland. Please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com, and get the collagen. This is a dual-purpose product. It's going to help with your skin, your hair, your nails, your joints, your musculature, and your bones. Take it every day. You get a big scooper. This is a month's supply. You can see on the screen here the typical amino acid profile. You can also see the label on my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com. But take it every day, mix it with soft foods, filtered water, milk, or a smoothie. It's up to you. Do some resistance training and get that dual effect of helping your skin and your bones and muscles. Myotrol is a supplement that you should be taking. It has flavonoids, polyphenols, and lignans. And what this does is it helps with gene expression, all right? When you get older, you don't express genes to help build muscle. So you need to take supplements that help with that gene expression. When you do resistance training, then what's going to happen is that you're going to build muscle more quickly and you're going to reduce atrophy. So when you get older, you lose muscle and it's harder to gain muscle. Well, if you take Myotrol and you do resistance training, then you're going to maintain the muscle you have and build muscle. This works very well if you couple it with the Gladiator barley that I have, because Gladiator barley it's a high density protein, and that would be the building blocks for building new muscle, and the Myotrol helps with the gene expression to help build muscle. So they're synergistic. So please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com, and get the Myotrol, do the resistance training, drink it with filtered water. Now, resveratrol. Resveratrol is really important to take. Why? It's an antioxidant, so it's going to soak up free radicals. It's going to help with your mitochondrial health. That means you're going to have more energy because your mitochondria builds up that ATP that your cells need. Resveratrol also helps with youthful gene expression. So there is a synergistic effect by taking the resveratrol and the Myotrol. Why? Because it's helping with gene expression. And resveratrol helps to get rid of cells that are in senescence. Senescence is basically when a cell stops dividing and it just sits there and it collects garbage. You want to get rid of those cells. And in tissues that can regenerate, that have adult stem cells, resveratrol is going to help with that regeneration. So please go to my store and get the resveratrol, really important to take as part of an anti-aging protocol. Now, C60. C60, you can get it in a 2 ounce, a 4 ounce, or an 8 ounce configuration. You can get it in MCT coconut oil, extra virgin olive oil, or you can take it in avocado oil. Now, you have to take C60 in a lipid, in an oil, because it's lipid soluble, and that's how you're going to absorb it. Take it on an empty stomach for best absorption. If you work out, take it before your workout. It's going to soak up those free radicals, and it's going to help you recover from your workout. Now, take a teaspoon a day every day, and what you're going to notice is your energy levels are going to go up, your mitochondria is going to be healthier, and you're going to recover quicker after a workout, and you're going to slow down that aging process. Your immune system is going to get better because the tissues have less stress, and your organ systems have less stress. So the different bodily systems that you have will perform better. Your endocrine system will perform better. Your immune system will perform better. Even your neurons will perform better. Why? Because your neurons have a lot of mitochondria, and if there is stress in those neurons, they won't produce the neurotransmitters and fire. So if you have neurons that are unhealthy or have a depleting level of mitochondria in the neuron, then you're not going to have good neuroplasticity, good positive neuroplasticity. But if you reduce the stress, soak up those free radicals, boost up the ATP, improve the mitochondrial health, you're going to have more neurotransmitters firing, and that's going to help with the neuroplasticity and have better neural connection. That means that you're going to be able to think faster, you're going to have less brain fog, you're going to be able to remember things better, you're going to sleep better. There's lots of positive things that happen when you improve your mitochondrial health in your neuron. So take C60, it's going to slow down the aging process. Take a teaspoon a day every day. And what you'll notice in 1 year is many of your bodily systems are going to be performing better. So please go to my, and you're going to notice that you look younger. Please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com, and get the C60. I've been taking C60 since I think it was 2016, every day. All right. Okay, so let me go back to CNBC.
This year, which looks increasingly likely as these tariffs stick, the U.S. fiscal deficit will be 8 to 9% of GDP at least. So the U.S. may be making $2 billion of tariffs, but the tax revenue loss that will take place if the U.S. economy slows down and slips into a recession will be far, far greater than anything that the tariffs could cover. So I think that from a macroeconomic standpoint, the U.S. has a lot to suffer here because the U.S. is so overowned by people around the world.
No. Never, ever, ever, ever bet against the United States. Long term, she will always surprise you. Always. Why that is, I don't know, but she always does. And this guy is like, well, the United States is on a cliff, and then, oh, by the way, if you try to fix and try to unravel globalization, you're just going to speed up jumping off the cliff. No, he's got nothing to say positive about the United States. He you know what he's like? He's just like Dr. Fareed Zakaria on CNN.
Economy will be able to withstand this better. The problem in America today is that they don't have the means to do that because their finances on the fiscal side are all quite strict. So yes, in the short term, America has all the power. It looks like the stronger economy, but that may not be true if these policies stick, especially I think as you end up getting a fiscal deficit of 8 to 9% of GDP and the fact that inflation remains relatively sticky. So I'm not seeing this as who's going to benefit more or who can do without each other more, US or China. I think that this is in a way a mutually assured destruction kind of fight that they're.
The question is, will China try to take over Taiwan? And if China tries to take over Taiwan and we have a war with China, do you think it's really important that we have a strong manufacturing base in the United States to be able to wage that war? See, this is not just about tariffs. This is about the manufacturing base and us building naval ships. Us being able to sustain a war effort if we need to. And not only that, bring back the economic clustering that we sent out for the last 35 years through NAFTA. We're trying to bring it back. See, what has happened is economic clustering has weakened in the United States. And now people that are coming out of high school, kids that are coming out of high school and out of college, they can't find a good paying first job to be able to support a family and get their first home. So the economy isn't as vibrant as it used to be. And a big reason is because we shipped that economic cluster out of the country.
In America's case, the current account deficit was too high, but let's not forget that it was attracting a huge amount of capital flows to cover that deficit. And if you reduce that trade deficit, by definition, those capital flows will also come down. And I think that that's what we're seeing just now. So the trade deficit being balanced is a worldview which belongs to another century, certainly not to the current age. And I think that, yes, the U.S.
So basically he's saying that status quo is the way it should be. Meanwhile, the younger generation in the United States cannot afford to live. So the status quo really isn't working for them. We need to change that. So see, here's the problem with these quote economists is that they are literally promoting the destruction of the United States. They want a one world, order. All right. Not just that. If you really think about it, where is the free trade? These countries that we're dealing with here have tariffs on our goods. Who started this tariff war? It's China. It's these other countries that are trying to protect their own industries. Now, is it a smart move for them to do that? Yeah. But why is the United States keeping allowing it to happen? Oh, it's the multinationals, US corporations, moving and setting up shop in a cheaper, low-cost country for the labor arbitrage. They're very powerful at the lobbying group level, telling Congress to push this agenda. And they sell those goods back to the United States cheap, at a lower cost. Their margins are much larger. Wall Street boosts up their stock. The CEO has stock options. He loves it, or she. And the federal government loves it, because what happens is those dollars that went to the foreign country has to buy US treasuries, and Congress can just keep on overspending. So there's no incentive for Congress to stop. Well, wait a minute. If you unravel that and you bring back manufacturing jobs and build up a cluster, economic clustering, then what happens is that you have a more sustained economy in the United States. So what we're really seeing is, this tariff war is really trying to weaken the power of the transnational capitalists in these multinational corporations, and actually building smaller businesses in the United States, which is more sustainable. Do you think big banks are more sustainable than a lot of small banks? Well, what happens is if you have just a few banks and not a lot of smaller banks, you build up systemic risk. And then all of a sudden you get too big to fail, and then the government has to bail a bank out if it screws up. So instead of having these multinational corporations having so much power with Congress, bring back the jobs, build up the economic clustering, and what happens is that you have more GDP because you have smaller business creation. You have a lot of small business creation through that economic cluster. And so your debt to GDP ratio will go down when you control that spending. So you have a more vibrant economy. Our debt to GDP ratio is skyrocketed. Why? Because Congress keeps on spending. It's inefficient. And our GDP is going down because of the economic cluster. Well, you got to reverse that. You got to increase the GDP, and you got to bring down the spending.
So particularly if you look at the financials, whether that's the banks, the securities firms, the insurers, they are some of the worst hit today so far, sector-wise. Also, we've seen a bit of a move in those pharma stocks off the back of the US president's comments that is the sector that will be targeted next in terms of his tariff plans. A lot of these companies have spoken in recent quarters about seeing that growth in the US market going forward as well, particularly Daiichi Sankyo as well as Takeda. They have significant market share in terms of their revenue in the US as well. And then some of those commodities exposed stocks as well. Sherry.
Lynn, thank you. Just a few minutes to go before the Reserve Bank of New Zealand announced its policy decision. The RBNZ is widely expected to cut rates by 25 basis points to 3.5% today and keep the door open for more easing as the U.S. tariffs loom. And we've got the Kiwi dollar actually sitting at a 5-year low versus the US dollar. 55.30 is what we see on the board there. And that brings us to the end of Swap Box Asia. I'm Sherry Kang in Hong Kong.
And I'm Martin, so stay tuned. The China Connection is coming up next. We'll see you all.
Please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com, and get the Boomer Boost. The Boomer Boost is that last pillar of my core protocol. Boomer Boost is a powder that has 68 nutrients. It's very extensive on what's in here. All right. You take it for your breakfast or for your lunch, mix it with soft foods, filtered water, smoothie. Some people mix it with milk. Take it every day, breakfast or for lunch. And what you're going to notice within 72 hours is that you're going to have more energy and you're going to be sleeping better. And that energy that you have is going to be a steady burn throughout the whole day. You're going to be able to concentrate. And what you'll notice is that your body feels like it's healing, and you'll just have more vitality, and you're going to want to move around. That part of that is because of the energy in your metabolism, and you're going to be losing weight. Okay. Now, this targets multiple systems. All right. One system that it targets is your cardiovascular system. Your heart and your vascular system will improve. The second system that it targets is your brain function. So you're going to sleep better. You're going to be able to concentrate. You're going to be getting rid of brain fog. Again, this also has magnesium in it, so this works really well with D3. And the Boomer Boost also helps with musculature, building up muscle. It's going to rev up your metabolism, and you're going to have lots of energy. All right. So if you're sluggish and you're getting older and all that, you know what? Guess what? Take this. If you're an athlete, younger or older, you should be taking this for your pre or post workout fuel source. Now, you take this once a day, all right, and you're going to have lots of energy, and you're going to be losing weight, and you're going to be helping control your blood glucose levels. So that's really important. Now, what I noticed with taking Boomer Boost was that it started controlling my migraines. I started having migraines when I was 8 years old. 8 years old, all right? Now I'm 52, all right? I'm 52 years old, all right? So I had, a migraine at least once or twice or 3 times a week since I was 8 years old, all right? So I was shocked. Absolutely. There was nothing that could help me other than Excedrin, all right? Nothing out there that would help me until I accidentally discovered that this actually helps my migraines, all right? So I don't know why, all right? I don't know which compound that's in here or a combination that actually helps with the migraines. So that was a pleasant surprise for me, all right? So, but I'm sure that you're going to find pleasant surprises with your health when taking Boomer Boost, because there's so many really important ingredients here that it's hard to really isolate, what's the combination that's actually, helping with any particular issue. All right. It's hard to isolate it, but that's what I found with taking it. All right. So please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com, and get the Boomer Boost. This stuff is like magic. All right. And it's not that expensive. It's a 1 month supply. And this is your meal for breakfast or for lunch. So if you add up how much you spend for breakfast or for lunch, all right, for a month, I'm willing to bet it's more than the container supply for 1 month. All right. So you can save money and lose weight and get healthy. And I'm telling you, you will see and feel the benefits within 72 hours when you start taking this. I'm not joking about that. Now, I would really like to know why it helps with my migraines. I'll try to find out. Now, gladiator barley is a high density protein. It's a powder. You take a scooper or a half a scooper a day, and this will help to bring down inflammation. That's good for your immune system and to recover if you're working out. It'll soak up free radicals with superoxide dismutase. It'll help to detoxify your body, which is really important. Not enough people detoxify their body. And this will help to build strength. So this works really well when you do resistance training. All right. Or if you're in a sport, let's say that you're an athlete or a an amateur athlete, younger or older, taking gladiator barley is going to help to improve your strength and your fitness for your sport. Now, it stacks really well with the Boomer Boost. So let's say if you're a younger or older athlete, you take these two together for your pre or post workout fuel source, and you're going to improve your performance in your sport. But you can take lessons learned from this, even if you're not an athlete. And let's just say you're older, let's say 40 plus. And guess what? You can do the same thing. Do a little bit of cardio, a little bit of resistance training, do some balancing exercises, do some stretching. You do that on a regular basis. Take the gladiator barley and the Boomer Boost, and you have the energy. You're detoxifying your body. You're building muscle. You're soaking up free radicals. You're helping your immune system. You're helping your brain function. You're helping your cardiovascular system. And you're controlling your A1C levels. So you're controlling diabetes. You're controlling your blood glucose levels. Very powerful stack. All right? See, a lot of people don't realize you can take lessons learned on performance athlete fueling, especially like the Tour de France type stuff, where they take 10,000 calories a day, right? And they eat at a certain time period, and they work out a certain way and all this. But you take lessons learned on high performance sports and apply it to anti-aging, and it works. All right. So now you can also get the heirloom barley. All right. Now, what's the differences between the gladiator barley and the heirloom barley? The heirloom barley doesn't focus on the strength side of it. It does the detox. It brings down the inflammation. That's good for your cardiovascular and good for your immune system. And it helps to soak up free radicals with superoxide dismutase. It's a high density protein also. So take a half a scoop or a full scooper a day, mix it the same way that you mix the Boomer Boost. And you can take the Boomer Boost and the heirloom barley together. I have a longevity box called Longevity Boost Box that's discounted, so you can get the Boomer Boost and the gladiator barley together, or the heirloom barley, and you save money. I want these products in your hand. You know why? Because I know they work. And not only that, I can tell you in what hour they'll start working when you start taking them. It will start to work for you in less than 72 hours. You will notice a difference. I'm not joking. This stuff works really well. All right? You take it every day and you're going to start seeing huge improvements in your health. You're detoxifying your body, you're getting healthier, and if you couple it with a holistic approach, which is proper diet, proper exercise, proper sleep, proper supplementation, learning new things, talking to people, adding either spirituality or some sort of meditative mindfulness, and you're bringing down those stress levels and getting your body into parasympathetic, then you're really supercharging your health, and you're slowing down the aging process. See, some people would say, I just do yoga. Well, you might get some benefits from doing yoga, but would you just doing yoga, is that going to give you the same benefits of also, let's say, taking a certain health stack for supplements? Of course not. Someone will say, just weightlift. And I just take protein, high density protein. Well, you're probably inflamed all the time. So what are you doing to bring down that inflammation? And if you work out all the time and you're not taking antioxidants, you're actually aging faster. That's guaranteed. Guaranteed. See, if you look at someone that works out all the time and they don't take antioxidants and don't take supplements that bring down inflammation, they actually age faster. Not slower, faster. So someone would say, well, I just do spirituality. Well, there are a lot of people that are fat that are Buddhas. Buddha was fat. I'm sure that Buddha had diabetes. You know why? because he wasn't living his life in a holistic approach. He was focused on just the spirituality side of it. Now, there's a little bit of a joke that I'm, saying with this, a little bit of humorous, but you see the point that I'm making. That if someone says, just take vitamin D3, or just do this, and you don't look at it from a holistic, multifactorial setup, then you're not doing it right. So that's why when I say to do something, it is the most comprehensive way to do it. That's proper diet. That means make sure you filter your water, make sure you stay away from processed foods, sleep properly, get a proper sleep, not too much, not too, not chronic sleep deprivation. Chronic sleep deprivation will lead to early onset of dementia, guaranteed. Why? Because when you're not in 3 cycles of REM sleep regularly, you're not consolidating memory and you're not detoxifying your central nervous system. So, sleep deprivation could actually age you faster, especially neurologically. So proper sleep's really important. Learning new things. If you don't learn, you'll start to atrophy. All right. That means that your vocabulary will go down. You're not going to be thinking as well. You're not going to be able to do sentence structure and write fluently, talk fluently. So learning new things, talking and writing and reading is really important. Another thing is proper supplementation. If you follow what I've been saying, bring down inflammation, soak up free radicals, boost up your immune system, control your A1C levels. When you do this holistically, your body is healing. But if someone says, just take D3, or just take milk thistle, or just do this, wrong, wrong, wrong. Your body works with different organ systems. And not only that, your biochemistry is complex. It has lots of feedback loops, positive and negative. There's not one little chemical. There's tens of thousands of little chemicals, if not millions. And they're intermediates. So the point I'm making is that it's a holistic approach. And if you follow that holistic approach, you can actually slow down the aging process. Now, if you look at people that don't do that holistic approach, they are typically aging faster. All right. And how it normally happens is that their ATP starts to go down. The health of their mitochondria goes down. They build up more free radicals, more stress, more damage to the tissues, less performance of the organs and your endocrine system and your neurological system and your immune system. People get sicker, and then it's a downward spiral. And you'll notice that if someone gets sick more often, you'll notice that they are aging quicker. You'll also notice that people that are getting older, their immune system is going down, their energy levels are going down. But if you reverse this, all right, you can take someone that's older and you reverse this by revving up that immune system, boosting up that ATP, improving that mitochondria, getting a little bit more bone mass, getting a little bit more musculature, and all of a sudden you start seeing that they're more vibrant. And they're not atrophying as much. All right. So ATP is a key component to this. You need ATP. And when you have energy and you have healthy mitochondria, it's a good foundation to be building off of. All right. Now, again, it's a holistic approach. Now, it takes effort. But if you really look at your life and you look at where you put your time, all right, you need to make sure that you're putting enough time for your health, all right, instead of other things in your life. Because guess what? When you get to your geriatric years and you're not healthy, it's not going to be pretty, especially when you're in a nursing home. But if you're healthy, you will live your remaining years with more vitality. Now, you have to also do the proper, screenings, make sure that you get the proper screenings for your health, have blood work checked to make sure that your cholesterol levels are all right and your blood pressure is all right and your other biomarkers are okay. Make sure you get colonoscopies. That's really important. But, it's a holistic approach. It's not the whole point of that I'm saying here on this diatribe is it's not just one thing. If someone says it's just one thing, they're just 100% wrong. They don't have any idea how biochemistry works. It's a holistic approach. But you also have to listen to your body. Your body chemistry is different than my body chemistry. All right? You got to just listen to it. And you listen to it in different ways. You get a feel for how your body's feeling, right? Intuitively, but also looking at those biomarkers through blood work or, other diagnostics. And you fine tune that protocol, that holistic protocol. If you're not very flexible, well, maybe you need to do a little bit more stretching. If you're not very good with kinematics, then maybe you need to do more balancing. If you need to gain muscle, maybe you need to be doing some resistance training, but not just resistance training. So you got to tune it. And everybody's slightly different. But the whole point here is that you don't just do one thing. It's not just about proper supplementation. It's not just drink filtered water. If someone says, I'm just going to just eat vegetables, wrong. If someone says, I'm just going to be a carnivore, also wrong. It's a holistic approach, and it's just a balanced life. And when you do that, you're going to go a long way with this, right? And you got to tweak it a little bit. And as you get older, as I've noticed, I started doing this, and a lot of supplements and antioxidants all the way back when I was 16 years old. All right. And I've noticed as my body is aging, throughout the decades, that I have to tweak it a little bit. Certain things. When I did triathlons in my 20s and 30s, I started getting osteoarthritis. I don't have osteoarthritis now. How I solved that problem? Well, I took high doses of D3, all right? And I'll do another show on this. I've done shows about this, but there's a protocol that you do with light resistance training over a 9-month period. You can reverse osteoarthritis, but it takes effort. And, if you had like a sports injury or, because of training in something and you ended up developing osteoarthritis, sometimes you have to go through more pain to be able to remodel the bone to be able to not have any pain later. And there's a protocol to do that. I did it, and all of my osteoarthritis that came from doing triathlons is gone, totally gone. So, sometimes the point I'm making is you have to listen to your body. You'll have different problems as you age and you tweak it and you learn on how to kind of like work the problem. All right. If you let it fester, then you might get problems. Let's say in this case, the osteoarthritis. If someone used to be in sports and they ended up getting osteoarthritis and they never really went through a protocol to heal it, which is an extensive protocol, but they never went to heal it. They have chronic inflammation. And that soreness and chronic inflammation leads to an erosion of your cartilage that may lead to needing surgery because of that chronic inflammation. So if you reduce that inflammation and you help rebuild that bone matrix, and by reducing that inflammation and strengthening the joint and the tendons and the ligaments over time with some pain, but what will happen is that pain will abate. You're rebuilding the muscle, you're rebuilding the joint, and you're remodeling the bone that will lead to actually a healthier joint. But if you just let it fester, decade after decade after decade, you basically are eroding your cartilage. And you may need surgery then. It depends on the situation. Some people have a torn, joint and they have to have, some sort of surgical operation. That's a different situation. But if you were, in a sport like marathons, and let's say you have a lot of people that run marathons, they have bad knees, bad shins, sometimes bad hips, right? So it's a holistic approach. And you have to listen to your body. If someone says just take 1 or 2 supplements and everything's going to be okay, wrong. That's why I was saying about this core protocol that you build around. The max 35, max 14 for the first pillar that helps with your immune system. The C60 soaks up those free radicals. The turmeric ashwagandha and the lignans brings down inflammation. And the boomer boost boosts up those energy levels in your metabolism. And that's a core. And you build off of that. You can add stuff to it. Omega-3s and the natokinases and the D3 and the K2 if you want to help with your cardiovascular system. If you want to improve your brain function, ubiquinol and NAD+, the clarity factor, so you can tweak it. And that's what I'm trying to show everybody. All right, that's where the magic is. So I've been talking for 2 hours now, and I'm gonna wrap it up. But thank you for the ones that have been watching on Rumble live stream and on YouTube live stream with the dashboard of the Asian market. We're going through tumultuous times. Don't be afraid. For the ones that are from the United States, a sunnier day is coming, trust me, all right? This may get worse in the short term, but don't panic. Use this as an opportunity to do an assessment. Do you want to have a brighter future for yourself? Or do you want to just keep on living day to day to day to day? If you're looking just day to day to day, then you probably are going to have a terrible existence when you're older. But if you're looking for a brighter future, invest in yourself. And you invest in yourself 2 ways. You invest in yourself monetarily for a brighter future for yourself. So that means that don't be fearful of what's happening in the market and buy into it. Buy into this tumultuous time. And in the future, you are going to benefit greatly. And the same thing with your body. If you invest in your body over time, you're going to have that compounding effect that will give you more vitality in your later years. Very important. So, everyone, you have a good night. Thank you for listening, and I'll see you in the next transmission.